In ancient Athens, Diogenes lived in a barrel with a few dogs, owning nothing but his freedom. When Alexander the Great offered him anything his heart desired, the philosopher replied simply, "Stand out of my sunlight," Alexander later confessed. "If I were not Alexander, I would wish to be Diogenes." But here's what they don't tell you about the story. Alexander controlled empires, commanded armies, conquered nations, yet he envied a homeless man living in a barrel. Why? Because Diogenes possessed something Alexander's wealth could never buy: complete sovereignty over his own existence. And there's a reason this story has been buried for centuries. You see, there's a pattern hidden in history. The greatest minds, the most dangerous creators, the empire builders who changed everything, they all shared one secret, a secret so powerful that modern society has spent decades convincing you it's a flaw and a sign of incompleteness. But what if everything you've been told about this is backwards? What if the very thing they've taught you to fear, to escape from, is actually the ultimate source of power? Here's the question that will haunt you. What if I told you that this path they're all pushing you toward isn't leading to fulfillment, but to a perfectly designed trap? Friedrich Nietzsche understood this. He posed a brutal test: eternal recurrence. If you had to live your exact life again forever, would you choose it? Most people recoil in horror. They're living someone else's script, making someone else's compromises, building someone else's version of success. But there's another kind of man, the kind who looks at that question and smiles, the kind who says yes again and again. What separates these two types of men? What do the great philosophers know that the rest of us don't? Stay with me, because what I'm about to reveal will shatter your knowledge about power, purpose, and what it means to be complete. One must have chaos within oneself to give birth to a dancing star. Nietzsche says that most people are sleepwalkers, following scripts written by others. Marriage often represents the ultimate surrender, a promise to be predictable and domesticated. But here's where it gets interesting: the Übermensch. Nietzsche's vision of human potential isn't a comic book superhero. He's the individual with courage to create his own values, to live beyond conventional categories, to become his own moral authority. And this requires fundamental solitude, not loneliness. Solitude, there's a massive difference. Loneliness is the disease of incomplete men who define themselves through others' eyes. Solitude is the natural habitat of creators, the space where real power is born. Consider Arthur Schopenhauer, one of history's greatest philosophers, unmarried, living with precision that was almost monastic. Morning writing, afternoon walks, evenings with books and his beloved poodle. Critics called him misanthropic, but Schopenhauer knew something profound. A man can be himself only so long as he is alone. And if he does not love solitude, he will not love freedom. Think about this: would Napoleon have conquered Europe if he spent evenings seeking Josephine's approval for his battle plans? Would Einstein have revolutionized physics if he prioritized date nights over breakthrough insights? The married man must translate every ambition through another person's understanding, fears limitations, but the single man, his vision is pure, undiluted, and dangerous. Marriage demands compromise where greatness demands conviction. It requires consensus where innovation requires singular vision. It asks you to be half of something when you were born to be entirely yourself. The will to power, Nietzsche's driving force of existence, flows differently in solitary individuals rather than being channeled into relationship negotiations. It pours directly into creation, achievement, self-overcoming. This path offers no external validation. Society provides no medals for self-mastery. The married man receives constant feedback: approval, disapproval, guidance, resistance. The solitary man must become his own compass, judge, inspiration. And here's the paradox: this is precisely where greatness is born. Nietzsche himself never married, channeling his passionate nature into philosophy that still shakes the world. His amor fati, love of fate, was possible because his fate was entirely his own creation. But here's what happens when you truly embrace this path. Death is stalking you right now, in shadows between heartbeats, behind your next breath. The Stoics knew this and used it as fuel for the soul. Memento mori, remember you must die. Not morbid obsession, but rocket fuel. When you truly grasp that time is finite, everything changes. Every moment managing someone else's emotions becomes a moment stolen from your own becoming. Marcus Aurelius ruled the greatest empire in human history, yet his profound insights came from private meditations, alone with thoughts wrestling existence's weight. He discovered truths married men never find. They're too busy negotiating whose turn it is to do dishes. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. But here's the problem with modern relationships. Try explaining this to a married man whose peace depends on his partner's mood, whose day derails from relationship drama, whose mental energy constantly drains, maintaining another's emotional world. The single man lives by the dichotomy of control, focusing energy on what he can influence, thoughts, actions, responses, while releasing everything else. The married man violates this, daily exhausting himself, trying to control things fundamentally outside his power. Another person's feelings, reactions, choices. Listen to this carefully. Socrates, arguably history's wisest man, was married to Xantippe, famous for her sharp tongue and endless complaints. When asked why he endured her difficult nature, Socrates replied, "If you can get along with her, you can get along with anyone." Notice what he didn't say. He didn't say she made him happier or completed him. He treated marriage like philosophical training. Endurance practice for difficult people. Is that what you want? You're using your most intimate relationship as patience. Training, spending finite life energy managing chaos. Instead of creating order, here's what the Stoics understood that modern men forgot. True peace comes from within. It cannot be negotiated with another person or maintained through compromise. It's achieved through self-mastery, requiring focused attention impossible when constantly reacting to someone else's internal weather. Epictetus taught that we're actors in a play, but we only choose how to perform our role. The married man accepts a role, requiring constant performance for an audience of one. The single man writes his own play. The Stoic emperor wakes before dawn, not because someone needs him to, but because he has work requiring clarity that only comes from undivided attention, from a mind belonging entirely to itself. When you understand that your peace is your responsibility alone, when you stop outsourcing emotional stability to another person, you become unshakable, not because nothing can hurt you, but because nothing can control you. And that difference, that's everything. You're standing in a vast desert with no map, no GPS, no guide, just you, the infinite horizon, and the crushing weight of absolute freedom. Every direction is possible. Every choice is yours. Every mistake entirely your fault. Every triumph completely your creation. This is existential angst. Recognizing you're condemned to be free. As Sartre put it, most people run screaming from this recognition, straight into marriage's comfortable cage, where choices are negotiated, paths predetermined, freedom traded for security's illusion. But what if that angst isn't a problem to solve, but a gift to embrace? Jean-Paul Sartre understood something escaping most men. Existence precedes essence. You exist first, then create who you are through choices. But marriage asks you to create identity through compromise, through endless negotiation that turns sharp edges into smooth curves. The married man says, "I am a husband, partner, team player." These are roles, not identities, masks, not faces. The existentially authentic man says, "I am what I choose to be." Moment by moment, without apology. Emily Dickinson, one of the renowned figures in American poetry, never married and from solitude, created poetry that still stops hearts. I'm nobody, who are you? Are you nobody too? She understood that refusing the world's definitions is the first step toward discovering who you actually are. Her aloneness wasn't emptiness. It was pure possibility. Albert Camus faced the absurd, the disconnect between human need for meaning and universe's indifferent silence, and chose rebellion. The only way to deal with an unfree world is to become so absolutely free that your very existence is an act of rebellion. Marriage, however loving, is a contract with unfreedom, an agreement to limit choices. Consider another's needs before your own. Compromise vision for harmony's sake. Here's what most people never understand. The American philosopher Henry David Thoreau went to Walden Pond not to escape humanity, but to discover what he actually needed to be human. I went to the woods because I wished to live deliberately with intention, with choice. Marriage makes deliberate living nearly impossible. You're constantly reacting to another's needs, adjusting to moods, compromising intentions. Thoreau discovered he needed very little to be happy. Simple cabin, basic food, books, and his mind's infinite richness. The married man discovers he needs much more. House satisfying 2 tastes. Furniture meeting 2 standards. Activities working for 2 personalities. Needs multiply because they're no longer his. They're negotiated settlements. The void terrifying most people. The emptiness of making choices without external validation is actually the birthplace of authentic existence. When there's no one else to please, consider, or blame, you finally discover what you actually want, who you actually are, what you're capable of creating. There's a lie so seductive that even intelligent men swallow it whole. You need another person to complete you, that somewhere exists your other half. Your missing piece, your soulmate who'll make you whole. Carl Jung would have laughed at this romantic nonsense, then explain why it's one of the most psychologically destructive beliefs ever marketed. Jung understood wholeness isn't achieved through addition, finding someone to fill gaps, but through integrating what you already contain. Every man carries masculine and feminine energies, light and shadow, conscious desires and unconscious drives. Individuation, becoming who you truly are, requires facing understanding, integrating all these aspects. But here's the trap most men fall into in relationships. There's powerful tendency to project your inner feminine onto your partner, expecting her to carry emotional, intuitive, nurturing aspects while you focus on rational, aggressive, goal-oriented parts. This seems to work initially. She handles feelings, you handle logic, but you're actually fragmenting yourself, remaining perpetually half-developed. The individuated man learns to access his own emotional intelligence, intuition, capacity for nurturing. He doesn't need a woman as emotional translator, because he's done the work, understanding his own inner language. Arthur Schopenhauer, living alone with his beloved poodle, understood this instinctively. Solitude is the fate of all great souls, he wrote, not as punishment but recognition. That greatness requires self-knowledge impossible. When constantly reacting to another's psychological material, the shadow aspects you've rejected or suppressed becomes particularly dangerous in relationships, because you start seeing your darkness in your partner instead of owning it yourself. The married man blames his partner for being too emotional, demanding irrational when often he's encountering reflection of his own disowned emotional life. But the man living alone must face his shadow directly. No one else to blame, carry projections. When angry, he must ask why. When sad, feel it fully. When afraid, understand the source. This direct engagement creates genuine wholeness. Jung believed in synchronicity, meaningful coincidences suggesting deeper order. These experiences occur most powerfully in solitude, when mind is quiet, enough to perceive subtle connections between inner and outer worlds. Here's what changes when you understand this. The archetypal energies Jung identified, warrior, king, magician, lover, can develop purely when not filtered through partnership compromises. The unmarried man's warrior energy pursues meaningful battles, not relationship defense. His king energy rules his domain without domestic negotiations. His magician energy explores deep mysteries without distraction. His lover energy embraces life itself. Not just one person. Jung understood the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But who you truly are isn't half of a couple. It's a complete, integrated human being capable of standing alone, thinking independently, creating from your full psychological depth. The married man seeks wholeness through union. The individuated man discovers he was never incomplete, just untrained in accessing his full psychological spectrum. Power isn't what most men think. They imagine money, muscles, or dominating others through force. But those who truly understand power know something different. Real power is moving through the world without revealing your hand, achieving objectives while others remain unaware they've been outmaneuvered. And marriage is fundamentally incompatible with this strategic power. Machiavelli wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are." But marriage demands the opposite: psychological transparency to another person. This transparency, while emotionally satisfying, is strategically disastrous. The married man has exploitable weakness, someone he cares about more than himself. Decisions are no longer purely strategic. They're filtered through consideration of partner effects. Risks are limited by responsibility to another. Movements are predictable because they accommodate someone else's needs. But the single man, he's a ghost in the machine. Motivations are private, plans are secret. Resources entirely under his control. He can pivot instantly when opportunities arise. Disappear when threats emerge. Strike when moments are right. Without explaining to anyone. Florence Nightingale understood this intuitively. When pressured to marry, she wrote, "I have an intellectual nature which requires satisfaction. I have a moral, active nature which requires satisfaction, and that would not find it in his life." She recognized her mission. Revolutionizing healthcare required focused dedication. That marriage would compromise. She needed to travel anywhere, work with anyone, challenge any authority, without considering how actions would affect a husband's comfort. Her strategic solitude allowed her to save more lives than any married woman of her era because effectiveness wasn't diluted by domestic concerns. Here's what happens when you maintain strategic opacity. Einstein understood this when she created heroes, like Howard Rourke, men whose vision was so pure, so uncompromising they couldn't be swayed by others' opinions or expectations. "I will never live for the sake of another man, nor ask another man to live for mine." This isn't cruelty, it's clarity, the man who lives for another has surrendered primary loyalty to his own vision. Mission potential, he's become a satellite orbiting someone else's needs, instead of the center of his own gravitational field. In business, politics, any field where real achievement matters, the most effective operators maintain what Machiavelli called strategic opacity. They reveal only what serves purposes, maintain multiple options, avoid commitments limiting movement freedom. The married man has made the ultimate commitment, promising to consider another's welfare in every major decision. This promise, however noble, is a strategic liability. Enemies know exactly how to pressure him. Competitors know weak points, allies know he can be influenced through emotional attachments. The single man's loyalty is to his mission, vision calling. This singular focus creates purity of intention that's both attractive and terrifying. People don't know how to manipulate someone who doesn't need approval, require comfort, or feel constrained by expectations. There's a price for seeing clearly, thinking deeply, refusing comfortable lies. That price is solitude, not bitter isolation of the rejected, but chosen separation of those who understand truths others aren't ready to hear. Nietzsche called it the burden of great souls, inevitable loneliness from refusing to live at the intellectual and emotional level of masses. Most men never face this burden because they never develop to where it becomes necessary. They're content with average thoughts, average goals, average assumptions about life. But the man who has tasted real philosophy, grappled with ultimate questions, seen through comfortable illusions. Most people need to function, he discovers. Very few can meet him where he actually lives. Mentally and spiritually, this is why history's greatest minds remained unmarried or maintained relationships that were intellectual partnerships rather than emotional fusions. They understood their real work. Pushing human understanding forward required mental energy that domestic life inevitably fragments. Schopenhauer spent days writing philosophy, dissecting human nature with surgical precision, evenings reading literature in multiple languages, studying Eastern wisdom, contemplating reality's fundamental nature. His routine was monastic, not because he hated people, but because he loved truth more than comfort, wisdom more than warmth. The married philosopher faces constant choice: explore existence's deepest questions, or invest mental energy maintaining relationship harmony. Pursue insights that might revolutionize understanding, or table breakthrough thoughts to help partner process her day. These seem like small compromises, but they accumulate. Each conversation about grocery lists is mental energy not spent on philosophical problems. Each emotional processing session is creative focus, diverted from breakthrough insights. Each domestic responsibility is time stolen from work only he can do. Nikola Tesla never married, and from solitude gave humanity alternating current. Wireless technology, insights into energy. We're still discovering. When asked why he remained single, "I do not think there is any thrill that can go through the human heart, like that felt by the inventor as he sees some creation of the brain unfolding too. Success. Tesla knew certain forms of creation require total dedication. They demand not just working hours, but dreaming hours, not just conscious attention, but unconscious processing power. Marriage, however loving, splits this dedication. Here's what the masses never understand. The philosopher doesn't avoid marriage because he can't love. He avoids it because he loves something more. The scientist doesn't remain single because he's anti-social. Solitude offers engagement with reality, more compelling than social engagement. The artist doesn't choose aloneness from fear of intimacy. He's discovered intimacy with existence itself. That partnership would dilute. Virginia Woolf, the famous novelist, wrote, "A woman must have money and a room of her own if she has to write fiction," but it's not just about money and space. It's about psychological freedom. To follow thoughts wherever they lead, spend hours in contemplation, without someone wondering where you are. Prioritize invisible thinking. Work over visible relationship maintenance. The great soul learns to be comfortable with misunderstanding. People assume he's lonely, incomplete, afraid of love. He learns not to explain, because explanation requires reducing profound choices to terms ordinary minds can grasp, and such reduction inevitably distorts truth. He discovers solitude isn't connection's absence, but a different kind of connection. Direct relationship with truth, beauty, understanding existence's deepest currents. This connection feeds him in ways human relationship, however loving, cannot match. You stand at the crossroads now. Every moment reading these words is a moment of choice that will echo through every remaining day of your life. Down one path lies a script they wrote for you. Find someone, fall in love, get married, build a life together. Compromise sharp edges for harmony's sake. Negotiate dreams through another person's fears. Become half of something instead of entirely yourself. It's beautiful. Millions follow it. It promises warmth, companionship, comfort of never facing the void alone. Society will applaud, family will be relieved. Friends will celebrate your wedding. You'll have someone to split bills with, process emotions with, blame when life doesn't turn out as planned. And you'll wonder every day for the rest of your life who you could have become if you'd been brave enough to face the other path. Down that path lies something rarer, becoming exactly who you were meant to be, without apology, without compromise, without needing another's permission or understanding. This path offers no guarantees except one: you will belong entirely to yourself, and from that belonging, you might create something outlasting your flesh, something changing the world, something justifying the audacity of being born. Nietzsche warned one must have chaos within oneself to give birth to a dancing star. But marriage is fundamentally anti-chaos. It's about stability, predictability, harmony, beautiful things, but not soil where dancing stars are born. The dancing star emerges from the man who embraces absolute freedom's chaos, who can stand in the void without needing someone to hold his hand, who creates meaning from nothing and purpose from possibility. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Confine yourself to the present," but the married man cannot. He's constantly negotiating the future with another, managing relationship patterns, pulled from eternal now by partnership. Maintenance demands the single man has access to presence. Quality impossible in relationship. Tension, undivided focus, pure energy flowing toward chosen purposes, without being siphoned by emotional management, domestic responsibilities, or maintaining harmony with another's moods. Jung promised the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But becoming who you truly are isn't a group project. It can't be done in consultation with a partner. It can't be negotiated or compromised. It's work done alone in solitude's laboratory. Through direct engagement with your own psyche and potential, the world will call you selfish, let them. While they negotiate dreams into acceptability, you'll build empires from undivided attention's raw material. The world will call you incomplete, let them. While they search for their other half, you'll discover you were always whole. The world will call you lonely. Let them while they manage another's emotions. You'll commune with forces they can't perceive. This is not the easy path. The easy path is crowded with couples holding hands, sharing responsibilities, splitting checks. The easy path offers immediate comfort and long-term regret. The hard path chosen: solitude, radical self-ownership, refusing to surrender, sovereignty for completion's illusion. This path is walked by few, but those who walk it discover true power. Comes not from being chosen by another, but from choosing yourself so completely. The world has no choice but to recognize your sovereignty. Elizabeth I chose herself and built an empire, outlasting every marriage of her era. Tesla chose the lightning in his mind and gave humanity the modern world. Dickinson chose infinity within herself and created verse that still stops hearts. These weren't accidents or tragedies, these were choices, conscious, deliberate choices, to prioritize becoming over belonging, creation over companionship, sovereignty over safety. Now the choice is yours. Your soul needs to know what you're capable of. When nothing holds you back, when no one limits your reach, when your potential's full force directs toward purposes that set your blood on fire. If you've made it this far, something inside you has already shifted. Write in the comments, I choose myself. Let's see how many men are ready to stop compromising and start creating. How many are prepared to trade companies' comfort for complete self-ownership's power? This is not your journey's end. This is where it truly begins.